Hello and welcome to all the Autobots and Decepticons out there. Yes, I changed it. I'm Joe here with me, my co-host Stan.
Hello and greetings.
Now, this video is going to be the follow-up to the previous one, which was wildly more successful than we expected it to be for this channel, because honestly, I was expecting like 7 to 9 views. Somehow it's gotten a few hundred, which, yay! Thank you, everyone.
We're not complaining.
Yeah, actually, thank you. Especially, to all those who've subscribed. Thank you.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge. But this time, we're going to follow the next few scenes, which there are quite a few to follow. Now, the animation, it goes without saying, in this movie is awesome. And the music chosen for the battle within the shuttle is great. It's very chilling, even as it's kind of 80s rock, which this movie had a lot of 80s rock.
It's 80s rock. It's good.
Yeah. But the follow-up scene where we see the Autobot plans switches over to the Decepticon plans. Once Soundbeak, I think it is, arrives, Megatron turns to it and says, "Oh, at least you, unlike some of my other warriors, never fail me," with a nasty look towards Starscream, who proceeds to appear rather resentful. And while I've seen some take the side that, oh, Starscream, that poor guy given the verbal abuse, Starscream deserves it. And it's forgetting the fact that Starscream at his core is a sadist who's no less evil than Megatron. The thing is, Megatron's pretty justified in hating him. But it must be acknowledged, at least within the context of this movie and the Beast Wars series, Starscream is a very competent fighter. Not the smartest guy, but darn is he smart. But he does get moments of cleverness. He can be clever. He's just... he's not half as smart as he thinks he is. And he's got eyes bigger than his stomach. He's not competent when it comes to betrayal as well. Unlike Tarantulas from Beast Wars, he just doesn't have the ability or resourcefulness to pull off a betrayal.
He's a lot more like Pterosaur.
Yeah, he's better as a number 2 guy. But even Pterosaur was a little more self-aware than Starscream.
Sure.
Starscream had chronic backstabbing disorder.
Sure, Pterosaur liked to backstab, but he turned out very incompetent in a position of leadership.
Yeah, but when he's a flunky, Pterosaur is pretty competent.
Oh, yeah.
He's not like Starscream. Starscream, if I had to compare him to anyone, it's Mystique. Chronic backstabbing disorder and not half as smart as he thinks he is. She's not half as smart as she thinks she is. Although the difference is, I'd say she's far crazier than Starscream ever was.
Uh-huh.
That said, this movie, we have to bear in mind, is the sequel to a kids show. And the first hint that the animators and creatives are taking things in a slightly darker direction is when Megatron comments in a very dark, sinister, yet gleeful tone when he hears the recording of Optimus say, "And all we need is a little time and a lot of luck. More than you can imagine, Optimus Prime." What then follows is the hijacking of the shuttle as Megatron proceeds to transform into a little handgun, which makes no sense considering physics. But we're going to ignore that. But at least we got to see what he transforms into in this form, because he never transformed in the actual cartoon, I think, except once or twice. At least I never saw the episodes where he might have. But he turns out to be a really good cannon, and Starscream uses him to devastating effect. But the thing is, what probably frightened some children, and in particular their pearl-clutching mothers, was the death scene of some of the Autobots. As you actually see what happens when they're fatally wounded and how they go offline. With 2 of them rapidly dying in quick succession, followed by the ambulance Autobot. I know he's important to a lot of people, but I don't remember his name. Is it Jazz?
Yeah.
I think it's Jazz. But Good name, though. If it is. And you have Ironhide, who's heavily wounded, pretty much mortally wounded. And here we're seeing that this was a darker film, as the company had decided to throw away its older toys for new toys and expected the kids to get with the program. Trouble is, a lot of kids got attached to these characters. Now, because we don't lie on our YouTube channels, oftentimes, I should say, more to our detriment than our own, for our own good. We don't really. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Most of the previous generation Autobots didn't have much personality. The new generation was better because they had more personalities. They bickered a lot more, and it's the difference between, say, Superman and his super friends from pre-Crisis, and the heroes you get for the Justice League from post-Crisis, with the heroes in the post-Crisis universe, essentially Superman post-Crisis, the best version, Batman, the best version of Batman post-Crisis, same with Wonder Woman, Hal Jordan, Wally West. They were better post-Crisis than the pre-Crisis versions. The only pre-Crisis version who was better than the rest of the lot in those pre-Crisis stories were Hal Jordan and probably Ollie Queen and Barry Allen. The rest pretty much had all the same personality. This is the idea of the Autobots. Only Optimus Prime and maybe Bumblebee actually had any personality. And even Bumblebee was basically just the same personality as Jazz, same as Ironhide and whatnot. Now, in the first scene of the video, we ended up titling Ironhide's Rebellion, which, yeah, that was a clickbait title, even I'll admit. But the thing is, in the 5 seconds we see of Ironhide, the creative power behind this film gave him a lot more personality. He talks back, he's angry, he probably has PTSD. So you get a very different character from the series in a good way. Even as Optimus Prime seems to be the same, except for the fact that he's a lot more tired. He's world weary. The past 20 years, though, for him is probably the equivalent of aging up a second, because he can live for millions of years, has not been a fun 20 years. It's been the worst 20 years of his life. And to be quite honest, he probably has aged considerably in just those 20, far more than the past million, psychologically. Whereas with Megatron, okay, I once heard the phrase, wars make old men out of young men and young men out of old men. And in Megatron's case, Megatron, I believe, was older than Optimus. You see in this movie, from the word go, that he's vigorous. In the series, he came off as incompetent and tired. Now he's like, okay, I'm in my prime. I'm doing great. I can win this. He's happy. He's confident. And he's even competent. Whereas in the cartoon series, he's not. Him and his goons aren't very competent. But arguably, some of them had more personality than some of the Autobots. But as we're going to see in the next few videos when we finally get to Earth, Hot Rod, probably the greatest Autobot character of all times, because he has the most personality, and he has the best character journey, and Cup and RC, these characters have a lot more personality. And there's a reason why Beast Wars, for example, references RC a lot as Rattrap's great aunt or something. But, yeah. So, Megatron ambushes the shuttle, and this is where you see that he is strategically superior to Optimus, but Optimus was in a position he had to risk it. But it's just that Optimus Prime, if you go by this movie's logic, which it's worth going by it, because, superior product, really great story, Optimus he has no luck. Let's be blunt. Because honestly, we've probably lost a few subs just with this video where we're kind of praising the new generation of Transformers over the old. The thing about Optimus Prime is he's not a strategic genius. Tactically, he's pretty good. He's a pretty good tactician, but not a very good strategist. He's physically buff. No one can fight him until Galvatron and Rodimus arrive on the scene. Those two are probably better fighters. But overall, no one can physically match him at present time. But the trouble is, he has no luck. Even Optimus Primal, who had very little luck, had a little more than Prime.
Prime
Is screwed.
He could have the most brilliant strategy, but
Something's going to go wrong.
something's gonna go wrong. A rainstorm happens, creates mud, and all the Autobots are bogged down by the mud.
Whereas the Decepticons aren't. This is his kind of luck. And in this movie, this is why he's so weary. Bad luck has built upon itself and conspired against him. If good fortune likes Joey Wheeler from Yu-Gi-Oh!, obviously she never took Optimus Prime for a pet. In a lot of ways, Prime is reminiscent to an extent of Pompeius Magnus, as you see him in the Rome series. He's world-weary, he has no luck, he can win battles but not wars, and he's having to watch as everything he's tried to fight for and patch together and cobble together is falling to pieces. And he has made so many sacrifices, and yet it's all coming undone. So ultimately, this entire scene is not just tragic for those who are passing away, but it's also tragic because you're seeing Optimus Prime's last hopes go up in smoke, literally, as the smoke comes out of the mouth and eyes of his Autobot companions that he loved ever so dearly, because he is a man who loves his men. And you see the contrast between him and Megatron. And on some level, Megatron's also a better strategist because he's willing to throw away his men to gain a superior strategic position. Optimus cannot bring himself to make these cold-hearted decisions. At the same time, Optimus is married to his word and is trying to do the honorable thing. Now, that said, in wars, you do need an element of ruthlessness. Rodimus had this. Optimus doesn't. And this is how Rodimus is able to take Cybertron back at the end of this movie, breaking a truce with the Decepticons when he should have abided by it in order to grab Cybertron. And you know what? The victory pays off. Optimus would never have made that decision.
Honor has place in a war, but if your opponent has shown himself to be dishonorable, you should not be beholden to your word like that.
Yeah, that said, mostly what we see in this scene is the undoing of Optimus's actually decent plan. It's just a resource run. And then he'd have enough energy to take back Cybertron. And I think that it's very possible he could have taken back Cybertron. It's just Megatron became aware of what his scheme was and interposed himself in the middle of it. So we see here that, as you pointed out, Optimus can come up with good plans. It's just he has no luck for it. And ultimately, this is why, to an extent, he does lose the war. But we should not focus entirely on Optimus Prime, as this scene is actually a tragic one for Ironhide. He's probably the real martyr and tragedy of this scene. Now, what Megatron brags about next is, this was almost too easy. And you have Starscream, who, never failing to show his stupidity, says, much easier than attacking the Autobots' moon base. And you have why do I keep going to say Optimus? Megatron ends up commenting, you're a fool, Starscream. We're going to slip past their early defense warnings, take Autobot City, essentially take Earth and all its resources, and then we're going to come back and wipe out Optimus. And there's not a blessed thing he'll be able to do except mount a futile defense or end up escaping again. And then he won't have the resources to take back Cybertron or Earth, and it's only a matter of time before Megatron crushes him. So, really, Starscream's plan would involve them risking everything to take the moon base without first taking the resources of Earth. And this would be a costly battle. Let's say the Decepticons can win. Although you have to bear in mind, it's far easier to defend a fortress than to take it. And let's say the Decepticons do win. Optimus can easily escape back to Earth and wait and gather his resources and then go back and take back one of the moon bases. The thing is, Starscream's plan makes no sense, and it's the very definition of stupidity.
Megatron is looking at an important tactic, even historically. Why a lot of generals, a lot of leaders of armies, one of the things they wanted was, I want to take care of my enemy's resources.
Yeah, take them away from them. Remove that from the chessboard. But ultimately, the sad part about this scene is when Megatron says they'll be vanquished forever. You have Ironhide who screams, "No!" showing himself to be alive and throwing himself at Megatron's foot to try to futilely struggle against him. And it's tragic because they do, in just 5 minutes, they fleshed out Ironhide really well. So that when you actually have Megatron who says, "Such heroic nonsense," and ends him, they give good testament to the evil of Megatron. But also the tragedy that Ironhide was truly a good Autobot and was a good person. The only reason he railed against Optimus was that he was essentially a traumatized war veteran who had witnessed friends and family die for nothing, and he was just frustrated and lost. Essentially, he had lost his way, and now all the good that he could have done had he lived is never going to happen. So it's really the tragedy of lost potential. And
I can't help but think of, remember the X-Men the Animated Series one-line Magneto said, "You are all fools. You are all fools. Heroic fools."
And
heroes are always the first to die.
Yeah, that's the case with Ironhide. He is the first to die. The next will be Optimus. And yeah, but I think this is an important scene. They needed to kill off Jazz and the others and Ironhide in order to cement the cost of war and the death of heroes, as also showcasing Megatron's evil. Because without it, we don't get a sense of just how wicked Megatron is. You don't. And you don't really care if he's the villain or not. Now you care. Now you are vested into the Autobot cause. You want Megatron to go down. And you learn to despise him. Because he just killed, well, he slaughtered an entire array of heroes. Now, this kind of storytelling where there's a cost and the villain showcases themselves to be evil. A scene like this, showcasing the brutality of war and the needlessness of it, you would never see in today's cinema. And when you look at, let's say, Disney, can you actually see them ever doing something like this these days? I can't. There is no cost and there's no weight to the evil of the villains. And the villains do have to be evil in order for you to actually invest yourself and care about the cause of the heroes. So this is the difference between the Michael Bay movies, where you don't care who lives or dies because all you care about is Megan Fox posing for the camera. And none of those movies have any value or worth. Whereas here, just in 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at most, we have gotten a bit of a character arc. We have been introduced to Ironhide. We see that he is traumatized and angry and embittered. And then we see him rally and even fall and perish. And we see in just 10 minutes, Megatron show himself to be far more powerful, dangerous, and wicked in nature than any of the Bayformer movies have ever shown.
And for those who were invested in the cartoon series, after seeing this, they want their beloved heroes to be avenged They want Megatron brought to justice.
Okay, now you're talking from your point of view because that's you used to as a kid watch the cartoon, I think, and then
Yeah.
you saw this movie. I saw this movie first, then a bit of the cartoon. I saw the cartoon series or part of it after Beast Wars. So I saw the movie, then Beast Wars, then the original cartoon, and so I'm more biased towards the movie and Beast Wars.
And because these heroes that people have watched and loved, they're now dead to the villain. They want that villain to go down.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So I think this scene also showcasing the nature of evil and its coldness and cruelty. I think it's also why this movie should be watched by kids. Sure, you should show your kids the earlier cartoon for something for them to watch, just to show them good versus evil. But this should show them the wickedness of evil and how good can ultimately triumph. And I think that's why this movie is a bit of a morally educational one. But tell us what you think in the comments section. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Megatron, well, putting an end to Ironhide.